I don't want to get into it.
And ain't nobody gonna stop me.
Front yard both times.
Fucking bath towel boy over here.
So, Steve, we were talking a little bit the other day. You have a bunch of leaders on your computer. You wrote down, you had like 25, 30? A lot.
Yeah. It's something that I took from, I listened to Art of Manliness podcast, and they had one on, a guy brought up an invisible cabinet of counselors. So it's different people from the past and or present, I guess, whatever, but that you can take from and apply the things they've been through and the way they handled certain situations into your life, so you can kind of apply those same things.
Like Goat Mountain.
And yeah, like either learn from touching the hot stove or seeing somebody else touch the hot stove. This way you're kind of watching them touch that hot stove and taking the lessons from them.
So, I guess my question, let's start this off this way with that. So, all of the leaders, is this people you aspire to be like? Or is it like just some qualities that you want to,
No, it's qualities that I want to take and incorporate into my leadership style and philosophy.
Okay. Well, what, name a few qualities that it would take to make the list, I guess.
Well, I mean,
I know that's a tough, that's a tough question.
Yeah,
We're starting a pod.
Well, maybe before we hit them with that. Maybe before we hit them with that. Let me. Well, first of all, for those of you listening tonight, we got the real Nasty, Bugga here, and Steve joining us. Just making sure y'all know who the brains of the operation are tonight. So,
thank you.
Yeah, talking leadership. So before we get into qualities, we're talking. You learn a lot about from observation, right, Steve? You the goal is to maybe not have to go through the hard times. You want to observe and learn and adapt. But let's be honest, sometimes that stuff hits you. And in a perfect world, you can just be a fly on the wall, see all the mistakes that happen. But in reality, that that isn't the case. So I was interested. One of the things I wrote down was, and maybe this is an easier question to ask than what B asked, but you could pick or choose. So the question I really wanted to just really hit you off the start to maybe kind of get things flowing was, give us a time, an example in your life where, like, maybe you thought you were on the right path, right? You were going down the right way and you hit a wall or something set you back. And for me, to be a good leader, you overcome, you adapt, you change, you figure out what didn't work and how to get past that, right? Can you give us an example? Just kick us off with like maybe a story of a time that happened to you.
Well, I mean, it's kind of multiple, I guess, that I could go to, but I mean, most recently, COVID, when COVID started making everything lock down and well, I guess a better way of putting that is, or we started locking things down, as a country and whatnot. And we had a plan going in of, we're on this path of healthcare, electrical work, and diving in full bore, and it's starting to go really smooth. And then that hits, and I mean, we went from 9 guys working there a day basically to 0. And you think you're on this path that is set and you have a plan all the way through and it's going to be a slam dunk. And something completely out of your control happens and that is completely cut off. I mean, finding a way to pivot and grow from that in a completely separate direction to where it actually made sense for us to walk away from that almost completely, that other direction, that other path that we were on. Uh, you know, that doesn't just happen. It took the leadership of, you know, myself, my brother, my cousin, my dad, the other leaders and you know, top guys at DC, all the way down to, you know, the shop guys. But without knowing, I guess, without uh, you know, without what I study and practice, I don't know that I would have been able to shift mindsets and go down another way so quickly.
Yeah, that's interesting because, like, thinking of great leaders, right? Like this goes. I did a report on Winston Churchill. Like,
Mhm.
I don't know, his high school, grade school, whatever. And he had a great knack for motivating, right? You know, World War II, he was in a great leader in regards to motivation for encouraging and motivating his people to go fight, right? Against the Nazis. And I know this is a smaller scale than World War II, but COVID was
Yeah.
a huge fucking thing and it like impacted a ton of lives. And thinking of you and your role and the business you're running, like getting people to pivot, like you said, pivot their mindset, like, and maybe this is hard to answer, maybe there's another way to go about this, but how did you, you know, motivate? How did you, you know, because a lot of people, and I don't know the whole nature of it. Obviously, Brad would better have being, you know, from that company, but I'm thinking of people that were furloughed or had to take pay cuts. Like I had to take a pay cut during that. And like, how do you motivate people to keep going when they're getting asked to do the same or more with less? Right.
Uh, I mean, we we made sure nobody got laid off. We made sure
Mm.
nobody took pay cuts. We made sure
Oh
that,
wow.
uh, like for instance, we kind of hit a real slow spot with one major crew, and we took that opportunity to turn part of our property into a new parking lot, and we did it
Hmm.
all in house. And we changed out lighting in our shops, both shops, to these LEDs that were messed up, and uh, we had to change them out from another project. Long story, but we ended up having them rewire them so that they worked right and put them up. And now that's what we have in both shops. And we like, I went nuts and chased all sorts of work that I normally wouldn't have even looked at.
Hmm.
And
So you led by example.
we just kept everybody busy.
Yeah.
Like, we had something in. Yeah, I mean, I started diving into stuff that I shied away from for a long time, and uh, put more effort into, you know, going these other directions, and it took, you know, me out of that so I could put more effort into some of the other directions, and we could, you know, we could move that way. And it,
And that's incredible because, you know,
we
there's
actually ended up hiring,
oh wow.
during that time. We ended up hiring, and from that time, we've we went from, I think we were in the low 30s, and now we're in the mid 50s.
Yep.
And
That's incredible.
during 2020 year, we, I think, added
Hmm.
uh 12 guys during that time, and another office position. And yeah, it was,
Yeah.
we
No.
we ended up
We
doing, I think, when you do things the right way and you don't let that uncontrollable event completely just throw you off and shut you down, you good things happen,
Well, that's kind of great pivot, Steve, where I was just going to ask, like, who did you model after? Who was your best inspiration during that time? Because I know a lot of great people say, like, in chaos is when people prosper, when you figure out things, or when a lot of companies go down and a lot of companies go up. Like, who was or was it a combination of a bunch of different ones,
Uh,
or?
it was a combination, but mainly Eisenhower. I listened to the Supreme Commander on Audible at work, and I read a couple of different books on him, and started using. They have the Eisenhower decision matrix, where if it's in square one, it's urgent and important. If it's in square two, it's important. If it's not urgent, if it's three, it's not important but urgent. And if it's four, it's not urgent and not important. It's a little square that when something comes up, you figure out which square it belongs to, and then you prioritize based on the ones and twos.
Yeah, yeah, that
So
sounds
I
that
took
sounds good.
Eisenhower, a lot of things from Eisenhower, and let me pull up my list here. I got quite
Yeah.
a few that.
Yeah, well, I mean, Eisenhower's good, and that's a
And,
pretty good
honestly,
little scale.
this is kind of weird, but the other guy that I read a lot about and I read two different books on him was old 50 Cent.
I was just about to say Curtis Jackson.
Yeah. Yes, Curtis Jackson. That
Yeah,
guy.
you
The
wouldn't
way
think
that
so, but
no, you wouldn't really think so, but that guy created what he wanted with the tools that he was given and the area that he was put in. He couldn't control any of that, and he took those challenges as opportunities and learned from every one of them, and now apply those same tactics into the opportunities that he has now. And yeah, so it was a lot of Eisenhower, and then listening to G Unit. That's pretty much how my days.
G-Unit.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, 50 Cent. I mean, Steve told me a little few stories about
yeah.
his books and all that, and he's actually a smart motherfucker. Like
Yeah.
He's
he created, like you're saying, like he
yes.
created a lot of opportunities, and even outsmarted people to
So
get what he wanted.
yeah, those were the two that I took from the most.
What qualities do you think those guys have the best that you admire out of 50 and your
Ability
boy?
to rap.
Yeah, well, I mean that's a given, but he perfected the slow flow.
Well, I mean, like like
He
qualities
was,
like being relentless or
fearlessness. 50 cents was his
fearless.
fearlessness.
That's a
Well,
big
didn't
one.
matter. I mean, it didn't matter what was coming up against him. He would attack it. He would not let anything scare him into not pushing forward with what he wanted out of that situation. He might have to pivot and get less of it for now and change direction, things like that to work it out longer. The deal he wanted, whatever
Yeah,
the way he got out of selling drugs to doing rapping to
yeah,
now. I mean, the guy's
yeah,
got like 5 shows on TV, whatever.
yeah. It creates
And then,
opportunities.
so, yeah, yeah. So fearlessness from 50, and then Eisenhower. Uh, the thing that I admire at him the most was his ability to lead in a. So I mean, he led the Supreme Commander of Europe, right, of the European theater. And he had multiple generals from multiple countries, And then he was also dealing with Winston Churchill, who had a set path that he wanted to go down, and FDR that had a set path that he wanted to go down, and coordinating with Stalin with their path that they wanted to go down. And the way he could lead and do his job and almost lead the people above him into keeping what he knew the mission was. So his ability to combat the leadership from above and lead up, and to bring the so many different personalities that he had to come together so they could fight their own battles as well. So
Yeah,
I
that's a tough
mean,
one.
delegating how many tanks this unit got, how many soldiers this general got, the whether the plan that they're coming up with coordinate or coincides with the plan that these guys are coming up with, and are they working together, and does this operation conflict with this one, and just his ability to wrangle all that. I don't know if really what that quality is. I don't
Well,
know what to call that. I guess is I mean, to me, it's leadership.
yeah, I mean
His leadership throughout.
that's what all that
He
came
has
to my
he has
mind.
a quote that leadership is getting people to do something important
Yeah,
because they want to.
getting the best out of
All
people.
right, it's paraphrasing at best, but
Yeah.
that's
And it really comes
yeah,
from in all industries, right? Like I was before tonight kind of knowing that this is what we are going to talk about. I was kind of, and I told Brad I had some websites pulled up of some things
yeah.
that I found
You
interesting. And
better hide those, buddy.
no, that's on this monitor. Yeah, that's when anybody starts sounding boring, I just watch this one over here,
Yeah.
which
When
is a
in
joke because that's my
Rome.
son and his camera or
Now you're
whatever.
just
But
making it weird,
that's
but it's
weird.
fine.
That's super weird. Anyway, but one
Yeah.
one of the interesting things I saw, and obviously you got to take a website for a website, right? You don't know their motive behind it, who's the writers and stuff like that. And this website is a lot of political leaders, right? Leaders of nations, leaders of stuff like that. And then you have this other website that was like Steve Jobs and Walt Disney and people that are leaders of industries that are growing or help revolutionize that industry, right? So you have leaders of all walks of life, whether it's a worldwide leader or a national leader or an industry leader or an athletic leader, someone on a team, or even just of your own household, like who keeps things, together, keeps things running and moving in the right direction. Um, Going through some of these, you know, one thing I found common in a lot of instances were two things. One was like they put some of the biggest leaders put a lot on the line with no guarantee that it was going to turn
Yeah.
out okay. you know, I didn't read this tonight, but I remember reading it in the past, and I could be way off, but I believe Walt Disney like put everything he had into whatever his first big movie was. That if it didn't work out, then he was
Yeah, it
gone.
was so white.
Yes, thank you. And if it didn't
Yes.
work out, then he probably never would have been what he is, right? So he
Yeah.
took a risk, he gambled, and if it didn't work out, maybe he found another route, maybe he adapted and overcame. But he was pretty tight on that. And then you have other people. So there's putting it all on the line and having
Elon Musk
faith in
did
what
that.
you're doing. Yeah, yeah. You believe in what you're doing, so you're willing to put it all on the line. The other thing I saw was a lot of these people had a lot of failures, right? And I had a question. Do you believe, and this is, really for either of you, do you believe that the best leaders failed in order to become a great leader? Or can you become a great leader without having ever seen failure?
I don't think if you've never seen failure, then you've never risked enough to actually get anything out of it. If
Yeah.
you're not failing, you're not risking things. And I mean, that's something that you have to go through in order to truly become a leader. if you haven't failed through anything, you haven't overcome anything.
Yeah.
You know,
It's
because
a good way to look at it. Actually, I like it.
I mean, that's the way I see it. If you haven't failed in something, then you haven't even tried at doing anything difficult.
And would you say
You
that?
can't. What's that?
Well, I was just say, would you say too that like the whole thing, nobody's perfect, right? So if you think you're never going to fail, like one, you kind of got a convoluted mindset right off the bat, but then two, like those who fail and overcome. I mean, I know it sounds corny, but what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right? Like, so if you can overcome it, you're going to come out of that stronger, or most likely come out of it stronger. If you don't overcome it, and you're not gonna move forward, you're not going to prosper, you're not going to get better, get bigger, whatever. So you kind of weed out who's going to be a doer and who's going to be a leader, right? By that kind of mindset in some capacity.
Yeah, because a lot of people are afraid to fail, so they don't even try.
Yes.
They don't put the effort in or whatever, and then you see people who are like, "I'm gonna give it my shot," and then when you fail, you're like, "I'm not gonna let this beat me. I'm gonna figure it the fuck out until I get it done." You know, there's
Mm-hmm.
definitely two types of people, or maybe there's something in between, but there's definitely the former and the latter.
Yeah.
You know, and I think I don't know. I think you have to have certain qualities to be a leader. I mean, that's definitely one of them. I think failing is huge. I mean, fuck, I fail all the time. I fail all the time now. You know, just in different things, you learn what you can do and what you can't do, and then you fail. And you're like, all right, well, I'm going to get it next time, or I'm going to figure it the fuck out, you know? Because at the end of the day, if you keep failing, you're going to be great one day because you've figured out what not to do or how to move past it,
Yeah.
you know?
You know, one thing that I have, and I'm not sure that this is truly tied to leadership or whatever, but one thing I've in my career, and I've basically been in two industries. I've been in sporting goods and product development, and then I've been in IT sales. And it doesn't. And those are very different industries. So I am basing this judgment off of the fact that those are very different, and I'm assuming everything in between and outside of that is the same, right? And what I'm trying to say is I can't tell you how many times that I've worked on a team and something goes south. And all my jobs have been customer related in some capacity. So sometimes the customer's affected and they're pissed or whatever. And I can't tell you how many times I say we, the team I'm working on, and I'm sure I was a product of this at some point, but I learned to move past this. Is it's always about we spend way too much time figuring out who caused the problem, which I know is part of fixing it, right? But to me,
Yes.
especially when you're customer facing, I find it so odd that we can't just say, look, we're all human. Yeah, maybe I screwed up this time. I'll own it. But maybe tomorrow it's Brad, tomorrow it's Steve, or next week it's Steve, or whatever. And that's okay because we're all human. But I get so mind blown with how many people get so caught up in making sure that they're not the one in trouble, and not even in trouble. They're not the one that caused the problem. I'm like, look, man,
Yeah.
it might be me today, but it's going to be you at some point. Like, can we not just understand that? And that's fine. I am the first to own up to my mistakes when it comes to the workplace because I want to just get to the fucking solution. And I want
Yep.
my team to learn from my mistake so my counterpart doing the same thing I'm doing, but for different customers, doesn't make the same mistake. But then my customer sees that I'm willing to own up to it and let's move forward. Let's find a solution. Like, is that not like that's just something that in the work world drives me nuts? Like, I just can't handle it. And I know it's not really leadership based, but I think like a good leader,
Kind
like
of.
when I've had good bosses, they've seen that and they're like, hey, guys, whoa, whoa, whoa. We're going to focus on the why and move forward. Like, why did this happen? Is it a broken process? Is it a broken, method, whatever? And let's move forward.
Yeah. Me and Steve talk about that all the time at work, actually. We,
Yeah. That's
It's crazy to me.
to me. Yeah. To me, the guy who makes the most decisions makes the most mistakes. So there's nobody there that makes more mistakes than I do. So I have to own up to it.
Sure.
Yep.
And it doesn't matter. Ultimately, even if I feel like somebody that's working with me, if they make a mistake, that's on me as well because I maybe didn't explain it correctly. Maybe didn't explain the importance. Maybe didn't. So to me, there's the accountability is and owning up to mistakes and even moving past the mistake, not dwelling on it. That is a huge part of leadership.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I believe that, and you said it right there, Steve, is if you're in a leadership position, and those team that there's two things that I wanted to touch on that you've said tonight. One was just there, like if you are in a leadership position and you're willing to admit your mistakes and fixing, right? Like you want to know if it's a break, like we have a faulty procedure, you want to figure out how it happened, right? And then how do we move forward? Like I'm totally on board with that. But if you're looking at your boss owning up to, hey, that was on me, I'm gonna take this, like let's fix it and move forward, right? I think that's a great sign of a leader. The other thing you said when you were talking about COVID, kind of going back a little bit, and you mentioned how there were things that you normally wouldn't do, normally you wouldn't chase down. Maybe you were, you have a criteria and we're only going to go after deals this size or whatever, and or whatever the case may be. But when you show your team that you're willing to be, adjustable in how you go about things to make the bigger picture work, I think that says a lot too, because then when you go and ask someone that's working under you, hey, I know this isn't normally what you would do, but if you could do this for me, here's why it's going to make us successful. And then if they've seen you do that in your own walk of life, in your own work world, to me that's so much easier to say, you got it, boss, like no problem, you know.
Mm.
But if you're just a boss that's always like saying do this but not really given the why. I read this thing probably 10 years ago that Nike put out on the why. And so many times we focus on the what, the where, the how. But if you focus on the why, it gets you to the end zone way quicker. And those call them colleagues of yours that you're managing, they're not gonna worry about like, what am I doing this for? When they've seen you do the very same thing, get outside of your comfort zone, do things you're not used to doing. They're gonna just say, hey, boss, why are we doing this? So I can get it done quicker, more efficiently, more effectively. Like that's what I've seen. And
Yeah.
I just wanted to point that out because I think that's pretty big when you were able to adjust what you were normally doing to make the whole team succeed. So it's more of a pat on the
Yeah.
back for you. So
Yeah. Well, the
Thank you.
the why is huge, man. That's one of my biggest drivers, one of my favorite things, one of my favorite quotes is just your why. I mean, not only like why are you doing the job, that's pretty big because it gives people understanding of why they're busting ass or staying late. There's a reason behind it, but a why behind why you push so hard as well. That could be a leadership thing too, is like where you're pushing so hard to set an example for your kids or your family, or you want to prove or whatever, want to just grow a great business to help people or be part of the community or whatever. Like the why behind it, to push yourself or to push people around you, I think is so powerful. Because if you have not
it's
only a why you're doing the job, but why you want to make the company great, I think is also like a big, huge factor that'll drive home for people.
yeah, and the what I and I agree with that because the way I looked at it, so I learned this when I was in product development, and I had to come up with an idea, and then I worked with engineers and industrial designers to like literally make that idea come to life, right? It's
Mhm.
simple as that. Well, I was focused so much in my early years in product development, um, of what are we going to do? How are we going to do it? When does it need to get done? And when I took a step back and I read this article and I read these different things about the why, it's really like the why is your reason for doing it. And
Mhm.
I was developing catching gear, batting helmets, and equipment bags. And if I'm like, dude, this would be so sweet to do this bag with this color scheme at this price point, but it's like, why are we doing that? Is there a hole in the market? You know, is nobody playing in that space? Is there a competitor that's just dominating that we need to overcome at a better price point? Like, why are we doing this? You know, are we just doing it because it sounds fun and we love the concept, or is there an actual end goal that's going to make us successful? And that's what really then completely flipped my mindset on the why is the first thing you have to talk about as a team, because then if it's validated why we're excuse me, why we're doing it, then all the other things come into place. We say, okay, we know why we're doing it. It makes sense. There's a hole in the market. There's, a place for us to take over share and so on and so forth. So then when do we need to get done? Who's going to do it? Where's it going to take place? So on, all that kind of stuff. So it is to Brad, your point, the why is extremely powerful. And I think in a lot of early careers for people, they don't look at that. They don't understand that.
Nah, powerful is the perfect word for it too. It's powerful. It can move you. It can sway you. It could, motivate you. It could push you past where you want to go. Maybe you're not wanting to do it that day. Maybe you want to be lazy. It'll push you past, if it's strong enough, for sure. And, on that, I know, see, you're talking a little bit about, 50 Cent, right? About his fearlessness. I think that's a great quality, and I think not very many people have it. Right? I think that one's a little more tougher one, and I know it applies to leadership. So what is fear? Like, what does that mean to you in terms of I'm not talking like mice, but, he's afraid of mice, but,
Yeah.
but fear like in doing something you've never done, or a leadership role, or, in life in general. It doesn't have to be about leadership, because I think it's a great leadership quality, but it can be just be like, I don't know, an experience, or I don't know, something, what it means to you, I guess.
I guess you mean what part does fear play in what we're doing, or what do you mean?
Let me phrase it this way. So how do you use fear, or do you use fear, or is this really hard to overcome? Does it hinder you?
I think I use a fear of one thing to push me in a other direction with fearlessness, because it's a balance, right? The fear of this is greater than the fear of this, so I've got to put the bigger fear behind me and go. I don't know if I'm phrasing that the right way, but what I mean is,
so
like,
basically,
for me,
you have column 1, column 2, and you just
what to me is the fear of losing, the business. I guess there's always a fear of losing the business, right? And
yeah.
Not that we're doing things wrong, or that there's just always uncontrollable events. So, and the fear that I'm going to be the reason that guys don't have a job anymore, that the work doesn't get done, the fear of failing in that aspect pushes me to not be afraid to go after the types of jobs we do, or the fear of overwhelming ourselves, or getting too busy. There's always oh, I don't want to be too busy, and I'm afraid to go after that job because we've never done it before, and we don't know that industry, and going into a mining industry when we've never really done that before, or going into the oil field industry when we've never really done that before. The fear of failing in that is I don't have one. I'd rather just dive into it, and like I have zero fear of that challenge. So I guess I don't know if I really answered your question very well.
I mean, you did.
That
So
was
we're heading down the path, right? We're headed right there. So I guess what I'm getting at is like, so fear of failing, right? So we're getting there. So fear of failing is
fear of failing, but fear of
Let me try to.
Right.
So take your two fears, right? Your fear of losing the business, right, or having to lose workers or whatever, is not going to win over your fear of trying something new to make your business
yes. There you
successful.
go.
So you
There you
take
go.
there's these two fears, your left and right shoulder, right, sitting there. Well, I'm going to go ahead and put this one of losing my business behind me because I'm going to take on the fears of trying something new
Yeah.
and taking on new business. Even if we're not experts in it, we're going to become experts because I'm going to let my motivation and my drive kick ass so that that other thing doesn't happen.
Yes.
That's what I'm hearing you say, and I would agree with that 100%.
nice. You worded it very well.
Way
That
to
was good.
take my ramblings and make sense of it. Maybe that
No, but
beard's coming in, man.
that's what this is about, right? Like, there's
Yeah,
plenty of
yeah,
times
yeah.
in these podcasts where we're like, you can see what the person's trying to say, and that's part of like growing, right? Is like you're a team and you build off of each other and
Yeah.
you see where they're going, and maybe you just like clear a little dirt off the path so they have a little easier transition, right? And easier path to get there. But yeah, I could see exactly where you were going with that, and that makes 100% sense.
Yeah. 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 I was bringing up, I was, I was heading in that direction. I was headed a little bit more towards like, I know, like if you see something and you're scared of it, right? Or you're like, I don't know. I don't know if I want to fucking go down that road. What I've learned in life is typically that's probably the way you need to go because you're going to die in your comfort zone, right?
Yeah.
I got a question for you, and this is gonna pertain to all three of us here.
Go
You're
on.
If you're not uncomfortable, you're probably not doing something right. Okay. And Brad, I think you said that. And it's so ironic because I had a manager or a boss recently say, in the sales world, for example, if you're not uncomfortable in doing what you're doing, you're probably not either challenging yourself enough or doing something right. But also take this thing. Okay. So we've all gone into something not knowing if we're going to succeed. Right. And I'll give you an example. Um, Two of us have kids and one of us have one on the way. None of us had experience in that before. Maybe we babysat, maybe you had cousins or a younger sibling or something, you had a little exposure to that, but you weren't a parent. And all of us are or have dove into that unknown of how successful we're going to be. You're responsible for raising another life, right? So parenthood alone is a true example for anybody who's dove into it. Like, that's an unknown. That could be crazy fearful. You could be scared out of your freaking pants on getting into that. But if you don't, but if you want to have a family, and that's not for everybody, but if you want to have kids, like, well, fuck, you got to kind of dive in and figure it out, right? And that applies to, your work life, your family life, your personal life, anything, you're trying to take on a hobby, like the unknown is kind of scary. But if you want to move forward and you want to achieve your goals and you want to have that family or you want to get that promotion or whatever, you're going to have to challenge yourself to dive into unknown waters.
Yeah.
You can't, if to Brad, to your point, if you just sit, granted, you can sit where you're at right now. I could, like, for example, I could be in the job I'm in for the next 30 years, retire, be happy, whatever. But like to me, it's what can I do more? Like, how do I challenge myself to that next level? And maybe at some point you get there and you reach that holy grail. But like, I think that for someone who wants to grow and I get bored if I'm like not saying like I'm great at what I do, but if I'm like just doing the same thing over and over and it's like muscle memory and I'm like kind of a robot, kind of get bored with that. So like what can I do to
Because you're
like
not growing.
yeah, and that's once again, that's okay if you don't have that mindset. Like there's nothing wrong with you learning what you learn, sticking with it and powering through. Like there's plenty of professions that happens, but
Yeah.
I think that's a leadership mindset. And I'm not saying for me, I'm not saying I'm a leader, but I'm saying leaders have to constantly
Sure you
be
are.
challenging themselves to be better,
Yes.
to learn more, to pass that on, and to
Yep.
challenge those beneath them. Hey, push me along my path. Like Steve, how many times do you
Mhm.
have people that are reporting to you come to you with a new idea or a better way to do things? Or and I don't know your guys' business like in and out or anything, but there's got to be times that happens. You're like, wow, I didn't think about that. Or like, I think a good quality of a leader is to accept that you don't know everything, right? You're not the expert in everything. And if you're not willing to take advice from others, like you're also hindering your own growth.
Yep. Got to get
Yeah, I
comfortable
mean
being
that's
uncomfortable.
something yeah, exactly. I mean that's something that I see all the time. Like there's on almost every job I go to, the guys ask me, whether I would do it this way or if they can do it that. And to me, I, as long as it's not like a crazy out of the box 100% different than we would normally do and going to cost way more money, I don't give a shit. I want them to do it their way because they're doing it, so they already know better of what it's going to take than what I think it's going to take because I don't know. It's hard for me to know what it's going to take to run a 4-inch conduit. Really, what it's going to take in each situation from my desk. So I
Yep.
much rather people do things the way that they want to do it. And I mean, there's certain things that has to be done certain ways, codes and our processes in the office and whatnot. But if they've got a better way that or a way that's going to make them do it better or them more successful at it, well, I can adapt to that. I can figure out how to work with Google Docs if they don't fucking like Excel, things. I can figure out a way to do the if they want to run the conduit rack with a gutter here or this, I can figure out ways to make that work within the budget that we have and things like that so that they can do it their way because they're gonna own it. If somebody comes to you as and you're in a leadership position and they comes to you with an idea of a way that they want to do it, if you just shut them down and go, no, that's not how we do it, they are not going to care. But if you allow them to do it the way that they want to, and they might find out that it's a terrible way, and you were right, and that you should do it the way that you were doing it before. And other times you might find out that this way's better, and I'm gonna shift my way of doing it to that way now.
Yeah.
You're
It's something
allowing
I
them
see all
you're allowing them
To grow.
to grow
yeah,
both by being successful, but maybe they do fail. It's like goes back to what we were saying. They failed
yep,
like shit,
Bingo.
I thought I had it. I thought I had it, but the
yeah,
other way is better. And it kind of leads me into a question I had kind of tied to this and
Does micromanaging work?
well, no, I've been in that boat, not
yeah.
as a micromanager, but and it does not work. But
No, no.
um and but it leads me to one question because it kind of goes along with that. in a leadership position, whether you're managing one person, 100 people, whatever, there I've seen it, I've never run my own company, right? But I've worked where the owner of the company is my boss. So like I've seen it firsthand where they're going through their mindset, and I can see how stressful that is. When it's your baby, they started it from ground up, and they're this goes into the type of leadership style that people have. And I know that's got to be hard to delegate and to trust that that delegation is one, going to the right people, but two, that those people are going to do it and get the job done. How how hard is that in your world, Steve? Like, a great quality of a leader is delegation. You can't do it all yourself. But what are the elements that you then feel comfortable enough to trust those around you? And I have an answer in my head, but I want to see from your perspective, like maybe that still stresses you out because like I've seen people, and I'll give you an example. I've seen people who they delegate, but they're then micromanaging everything because they can't trust, despite the success of the people doing it, they can't trust those getting the job done correctly. And I'm not really sure I'm asking a question here, but I guess I'm asking like, what has what elements gave you the comfortability to allow Brad, to allow Pete, to allow all these people that working for you, like do what they're going to do, and you trust that? Like, what is it? Is it they have a proven track record, or I didn't trust them at first, but they proved me wrong, and then I can like kind of breathe with ease, or is it I trust them till they fail? Like, what is it to you? How does that delegation process work for you?
Uh, I think it's kind of different with every person, but I think that if you're like, for instance, with Brad, I hired Brad to fill a
I'm
certain
sorry.
role. So if I wasn't going to trust him to take that role that I was asking him to do and do it his way or get it done, then I should never hired him in the first place. So, like for me, it's you have to trust that the person is going to go do their job um, with everybody a certain degree. And yeah, you might, have I don't fully trust them yet. Because I think trusting that somebody's going to show up and do their job, whether that job is uh, a hard day's work or a bare minimum day's work. You have to trust that they're going to do that. Um, and then you grow to trust them past just what the work is, but how their belief in it. You trust you have a certain amount of trust in them to where you can open up more and give them more and do have them take on because to me I kind of hire to fill roles. I see a role that we need, not all the time. Like sometimes I hire for manpower, but a lot of times I just hire for filling a role. Like our shop was disorganized as fuck. You couldn't even go in there without seeing anything. I interviewed a guy that I was planning on him being in the field, and then he told me what he was good at, and I went, "Wow, that's a role that we need to fill. You were hired to fill that."
Mhm.
And so I think as long as you're hiring to fill needs that you have and hiring people for those needs, like hired Brad to be a field guy, I would have. It's a total different mindset for me going into his role, office, field. And so to me, it's finding the people that are going to fill the role that you need, and then trusting them that they're going to at least do their job. and then over time you trust them as a person that when they're gonna take a risk, you're gonna trust that they're diving all the way in. There's some guys that they come in and they make a lot of noise and I'm going to do it this way and I'm going to do it this way and I'm running this much work and I'm doing this, and you can just see that you can't truly trust them, that they're not doing what they say they're doing, because the guys that are doing it don't need to make the noise. So
the numbers don't
I
lie.
think it's trusting everybody to do their job. I think you have to, and then once you find out that you can't, you take the steps to either change that in them, that whether they're going to change, or you weed them out.
Is there like certain qualities you look for in the people? I guess you have to have trust in, right? So, say work, for instance. Is there certain qualities like you look for like, hey, I'm gonna trust this guy and I'm gonna put him on a lead on a job, or I'm gonna trust this guy to go do this job? Like, is there some certain ones that you point out, or you're like, hey, he should have this in order to have trust in him?
To me, it's I don't trust the guy that knows everything. The guy that's done every type of job, the guy that's ran every type of pipe, the guy, there's some guys that they've done that, but until I see it, I can't trust it. So the guys that are willing to admit that they don't know everything, but they are willing to learn it, and you can see that that's sincere wantingness to learn. I don't know, or willingness to learn, willingness to step out of their comfort zone, the willingness to adapt to the different environment, because going from an everyday electrician to with somebody else to come and being a leader in the type of work that we're doing, in a lot of areas, you can't just do that. A guy that's been an electrician for 20 years but has only wired houses for the last 15, he's not going to exactly know. He could maybe run a job, but is he going to know everything about that type of job? It's just,
Yeah.
so those guys that say they know everything, and that's really the thing I look for the most. When a guy comes in and he's done it all and he's fucking great at it and he's the best.
Yeah.
Why the fuck do you look for work then, man? Like,
yeah, you
we
should
should be looking for you.
Yeah.
So, like, that's the biggest thing is that know-it-all attitude versus the true sincerity of a willingness to learn. That's what I look for, and not just leadership positions and journeyman or anything like that, but in all hires.
Yeah.
I think that's very important. And sometimes you get desperate and you make a bad hire. And,
Well, yeah, they happen.
That happens.
Yeah,
That happens.
definitely happens.
And the other thing is I think it goes back to that fearlessness that you've got to. If you're afraid of every person that you hire not doing their job, then they're never going to do their job.
Yep.
Because you're never going to allow them to do their job.
You're going to drive yourself insane.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
Are you a proponent of?
Say that again.
Steve. No, go ahead, Steve. Sorry.
I was just going to say if it's obvious somebody's not doing their job, that's a different story. But just being afraid that somebody's not doing their job when you don't really know, that's micromanaging to a point that is unhealthy. Because now you're not allowing yourself to work; you're just constantly worried about them.
Well, and then
if you're the type of leader that's I gotta go check on my crews to make sure they're working. Well, they're not fucking working because they know you're not working.
Yeah.
So
it sounds like, and this was going to be my question earlier, but I think this is what I'm gathering is You sound like a proponent of trust is given in one capacity, right? Like, I trust you're going to get your job done. The work's going to speak for itself, right? If you lose my trust, we got a big uphill battle. But I
Yes.
trust you from the start. That's why I hired you. Don't prove me
Yes.
wrong. And then if you prove me wrong, not saying you're gone, but you got a big uphill battle. And if I trust you to do your job, you're producing, then I trust you as a person to take the next leap, to give you that freedom to make some decisions to maybe further yourself or further the position or stuff like that. Like there's like a kind of a second tier approach to that
Yeah.
with you.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's
Exactly.
Yeah.
I've seen some of the great like I guess I've had a pretty decent amount of managers, but like the ones that I've worked with the best are the ones with that mindset because I know I can get the job done. And it's funny, every job I've had, like I didn't go to like I got a business degree, I got a master's, whatever, but it was all for like business marketing.
Ooh.
Okay, all right. Have I used it? Well, yeah, okay, all right. But what
Sorry, Beck. It just slipped
oh
out,
my
buddy.
god. What I was trying to say is I have these degrees, but I'm in business, but I got my emphasis in marketing and my master's emphasis in marketing. And I know marketing is kind of tailored to a lot of positions, but I jumped from sporting goods, developing product where like I had no engineering background, no anything like that, to IT. And when I jumped to IT, one of the points you made was I was upfront with honest. I was like, hey, look, I know how to use Google and like do some shit, but like I don't know IT. I know business. I don't know IT. He goes, hey, I can work with that. I can teach you the IT side. I need someone who could talk to people.
Yep.
But if I try to BS and say I knew all this IT shit, and then like day one, he's like, "Oh, well, tell me, tell me what cybersecurity products you worked with and what firewall configurations you." I'm like, "Oh, dude, my mind would have been exploded." And I think the
Yeah.
biggest thing is, I know it's so another cliche is like honesty is key. The more honest you
Yes.
are, like you may not. Sometimes, like when I go back and look at some interviews I've had, if I wasn't honest, maybe I would have got this job over here, but I probably would have failed. I probably would not have done well.
Mhm.
But it, being honest in those interviews, I didn't get the jobs that I wasn't meant for, and I got the jobs I was meant for, and that allowed me to then jump into that job, them knowing my background, truly knowing my skill set, truly knowing what I was capable of doing, and I felt like I owed that to the hiring manager because that's who I'm going to be working with,
Yeah.
and in my mind, similar to what you've been saying, is in a very short time, they're going to learn if I was BSing or not. Like there's some extremely good BSers that can like
Oh, I
get
know.
by
I've
and
been
figure it
fooled.
out.
I've been
But
fooled.
at some point, it's going to catch up with you. So,
Yeah.
and I'm not
Yep.
saying I've ever done that in the business world, but I've seen it, which has taught me to like, look, just be cut and dry. You may want this so bad, work for this company so bad, but how long are you going to be there if you're not truly qualified? So I think, and I'm saying this for anybody listening that is going through a hiring process, who is like looking for a job, like it's key to be honest because you're going to be working with that person and your goal is to be there long term. You know, things can change, but you want that person who's going to be managing you to know who you are and to set expectations on your skill set, your level of expertise. That's only going to make them a better leader for you because they know how to guide you through the process. They know that if,
Yeah.
like for me, my boss was like, okay, I'm going to teach him the IT part. He knew he had to do that. Me coming in, he wasn't expecting me to know it all right off the bat. So you're kind of
Yeah.
setting expectations, and that's what makes myself successful and my boss successful. And I think that's probably what you are looking for, right? Like that's what's fair to
Yeah.
you as a manager, as a leader. You know, you're only as good as the people working around you
True
and
story.
what they're capable of doing.
True.
Yeah. I mean, some of the guys that we have in leadership positions right now, that are running work, and have guys working, underneath them. They didn't come from the electrical background. They came from food. They came from, different, all different shit. And it,
Yeah, I came over from AT&T.
yeah, it's exactly. I mean, that's not, I couldn't remember. What it was.
Yeah.
Where you used to work, but
But you have Verizon now, don't you?
yeah.
Oh, unfortunately.
But it it's not about having it's good to get guys that have been in the industry and are experienced and whatnot. You need those guys, but you also need the guys that don't know anything about it that just want to, because that want to it that means more. The want to, even if you have been in it but you want to do something different, you want to, like guys that have only done residential that want to get into commercial industrial. If they want to, they can take what they learned and apply it, in this industry now. But if they just go, well, that's not how I used to do it.
He's getting
right.
I am sorry.
Jesus
I'm so
Christ,
sorry.
that was like an outburst. Jesus.
You,
Do you swallow
did you
fly?
chug a White Claw?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, what?
Uh,
No, I
Did you
just
chug a White Claw? Is that what happened?
when I left earlier, I took down a Tide Pod, so it's kind of coming back up.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
Trying to bring that challenge back.
Yeah, it was a weird cough, buddy.
I've been having coughs like tonight for no reason. This room's pretty stuffy, so I'm just going to blame it on that. It's like fucking hot
There
as
you
shit in
go.
here.
Pollen.
Sorry to interrupt,
There
but
you
go on.
Yeah,
I'll try
that was
to
a weird
mute.
interrupt, but
You're good.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, just the want to. That means more than anything else. You can have all the experience in the world, but if you don't want to, it's not going to matter. You're gonna stay where you're at.
Yeah.
Can I ask you an interesting question? Assuming you've hired Brad, you've obviously interviewed, hired people. I know you mentioned. I'm assuming most of the people that you hired during that COVID era, you were probably involved to some degree in. I want to ask a question because I'm guessing you're looking for specific qualities in people. I know Brad, you kind of asked this, but what is something that is an immediate, because you want leaders, right? You want people to grow and get better and challenge the company to grow and be the best it can be and everything. What is something that's an immediate turnoff? It could be like something they say, something they do.
Wait, this is about me?
No. I was saying, I
was
know you've
like,
hired.
Jesus Christ,
I mean, we can
Buck.
go that route. But obviously he was
I know you've
blinded
hired
and he
Brad,
hired
but
you anyway.
what's your biggest turnoff, buddy?
No. Meaning like I know you've hired people, Brad. So I know like you're my only person I know that he has hired. Like, but it sounds like you've interviewed and hired a bunch of other people. So you have experience in this. But what would be a quality or something like someone does or says? Like, I'm thinking of like anybody listening. Once again, I know we're talking leadership and qualities and examples of good leaders, but if anybody listening has one of these qualities or acts this specific way, maybe you might want to, dust off the old, quality check on your own person and kind of improve. What is something like automatic no? And maybe you don't have one, that's fine too, but like you're interviewing someone, and I know it's tough because you're in a specific industry and things like that, but that you're just like, they're a no. They're a no.
So for me, this is very industry specific, but if somebody puts on their resume that they do PLC work and they're working and I look at the companies that they've worked for, they say that they've worked with
Can you
PLCs.
explain what PLC works is real quick?
Programmable logic controller. So this is the brain that runs the control cabinets that we build that run equipment, right?
Okay.
So when I'm looking at his resume and I see a guy that's worked for some of the local shops in town, and he says PLC work, I'm immediately skipping that guy. Not 90% of the time. If he's got other companies that I know do PLC work, yeah, I'll talk to him.
And
But
what quality would turn that off?
Or why does
it's
that
the
make you turn
resume.
them off?
It's the way that they try to boast their resume and say that they've done all these things when there's very few
cabinet controls
that actually work with that
automations.
type of equipment. Yes.
So you feel like they're
So
lying
that-
to you.
You don't just see that. You don't just see that in everyday things. Yeah, there's PLCs in little time clocks and lighting control panels and things like that. But they're trying to say that they've done it all when they haven't even worked in the right places to have done that type of work.
Yeah, and for everyone out
it's
there,
just trying to boast their resume just to get just so that they look like they've done everything, And then you ask them, they talk about VFDs, and you go, "Oh yeah, well, what type of VFDs?" And they bring up a VFD that I've never heard of.
So basically, they're being deceptive.
Yeah.
That you probably have to work with one of these companies to truly know
Yes.
that specific skill set. It's like me saying, I played in a baseball tournament and I won $50, and it was just like some podunk league down the street. I was a pro baseball player. I played pro baseball because I got paid.
When they're trying to upsell their achievements by just throwing out terms.
Yeah. And for everyone out there, it's PLCs and stuff like that. We're talking about like automation controls. So stuff that you can program. So like if you're on a potato plant, you can have it go start and stop at certain times, and you don't have to have someone there to manually stop it, stuff like that. So there's a lot of programming and stuff that goes into it. A lot of relays. It's very very technical, not just your typical electrical field. Hey, we're gonna hook up this panel, run some outlets, shit like that. It's very in depth,
pretty top notch. Yeah.
Yes.
When they might have been on a job that had one of those on it, and they worked with it. When they're trying to kind of like I said before, when they've done everything and they know everything, and you can see right away that they're full of shit.
Yeah.
I don't that immediate when somebody says that, when I can see obvious bullshit, I would rather somebody bring that up in the interview and in a way that they saw something about us and then they talked about it with knowledge behind it, but putting it out there, if we're looking for that specific position, we're going to look for the places where those type of people would work.
School.
It's it's not. It's just when like a guy says he's worked with every type of conduit, and I look at and he's worked for one company in town that only does houses. Well, bullshit, you've done all that.
Yeah.
So making a resume look really good is great, but
being deceitful,
downplaying yourself a little bit,
Yeah.
like not just going, I know everything. Yeah. Going
it goes back
experience.
That's just being deceitful, though.
Yeah.
It goes back to it goes back to you or me asking the question, like when you decide to hire someone, you're giving them that trust that they're going to do what they say they're going to do. And until they break that, they're going to keep moving up. They're going to keep doing their thing. Like you're going to gain more and more trust on the next level of who they are as a person. And let's be honest, everybody's kind of like tried to make themselves look a little better on a resume, but there's a point where you're just really pushing the envelope. And there's only so far you can go with that. Like if you're you can't put down you have a certification when you don't have a certification, or you don't have a license when you don't have a license. Like,
Yeah.
there's that part. But then when you're putting, like, again, like, I like my I played pro baseball. Well, yeah, I played in a charity tournament where they paid me $10 to come up and
Exactly.
okay, you're not a
Yeah.
pro baseball player. Like,
Yeah.
they're
yeah.
stretching it and like kind of making yourself like as good as you can be for what you truly are able to do, and then there's breaking that line.
Right.
There's a line.
Like, hey,
So-
I'm in real estate. No, you just bought a house. Like,
Yeah.
there's a big fucking difference. You know what I mean? Like, it's there's a fine line there, and yeah, deceitful. Yeah, that's a big one. Steve, is there any other one that's just like no, or when you pick up on it in an interview, you're just like, nah. You can kind of go through the motions.
When you ask, like, one thing that is immediate for me, kind of, it's at a stopping point, is when you get to a certain question in the interview process about how they handle confrontation, or been in a situation that kind of was a mistake on their part, and nothing everything happened was faulted somebody else, when they've done everything right and everybody else fucks up, and they've fixed everybody's mistakes, and they've done this, and they've it when there's no accountability behind the person, you can see it, in that, when nothing's ever their fault. So
Well, they've never been in a confrontation at work. That's a lie.
exactly, yeah.
Lie.
You could be working for a week and that's freaking
Or
happening.
immediately starts bad mouthing other, the people
Yeah.
that they're working for, or anything like that. Like, there's expressing your frustrations about the company that you're working for, and then there's just bad mouthing,
Yeah.
and well, as soon as somebody starts bad mouthing another contractor, to me that's usually a bad sign.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
you can voice maybe a couple frustrations, but if you're bad mouthing somebody,
yeah,
it's usually
when
you know,
you're calling out specific, like
yeah,
personal things, like
yeah,
that's going, like, yeah, they might have wronged you, like, I can guarantee there are employees, past employees, and probably even current ones, that have felt wronged by me in some way. I guarantee it. It's bound to happen.
yeah, because they
But
won't look in the mirror. But yeah,
for somebody to just constantly dwell on that situation, to me, they're going to take everything personal, and you're not going to be able to coach them. You're not going to be able to criticize them, because criticism has to
kind of
happen.
narcissistic there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
You have to be able to give criticism in a leadership position. You have to be able to take it, and
yeah,
and
humility.
if exactly, but that's one thing, is when everything's personal, and nothing's ever their fault, and that that's an immediate, like, well, it's kind of the victim card, when you see somebody immediately playing victim, that's never a good sign.
Yeah, hate that.
Yeah.
That's the worst. But honestly, dude, this is good to know. We have different, I guess, different things. I mean, that's good because a little while back we kind of like tag team interviews, right? Steve sent them to
Yeah.
me. Ask him a few questions, see what I thought, then send them up to him.
I would like to keep doing that too.
Yeah, it's good
felt
because
good about
we have different. I mean, I kind of had a hunch that's where you're going, but we never like sat down and actually talked about it. So, like for me, I look at different types of things. Like, one of my questions is like, how do you feel about overtime? The willingness to do that, and to see a hesitation. Yeah, right. Like, hey, how do you feel about it?
Yeah.
And you can see hesitation. You can see people. Well, if I don't have to, I'm like, okay, well, what about, we got to stay late. We got to finish up, and you can see it all right there. They will tell you everything you want to know. If they're going to be lazy, if they're going to be like, no, well, I'm going to come up with an excuse so I don't have to stay late. whatever. Because at the end of the day, we're all a fucking team. And if somebody's got to stare, we got to finish the project, you got to be there and you got to be pulling your weight, not just dragging the team down. Right.
Yeah.
So I like to look for that type of shit. And I like to look for like complacency, or I like to look on the positive side, like drive. Like, do they have any internal drive? Like, are they going to push to be a good employee? Are they going to want to learn? Are they going to push to move up or to accomplish things? Or are they just like, well, I'm here for a paycheck? I mean, that's one thing that, I think, I don't 100% know, but I think I'm good at reading people. And that's one of the things I pick up on as I see like mannerisms or hesitation or change of voice, or like, what they're doing and how they talk about it. If it's in a negative light or positive, or if they're, because you can kind of pick up on a lot of things. I don't even have the time to listen to what they say. I just listen to what they're doing or what they're thinking, or if they're focusing on like a team or just themselves. Because at the end of the day, we're, at least in our electrical industry, it's a team. And I know it's a team in, I don't know, a lot of industries, unless you're just some solo entrepreneur, like anything. So if you're not willingness to work with someone,
willing to be a part of a team is huge. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you guys this, kind of going with that, because there are times I've seen people. I've had a lot of interns, so I think interns are a very interesting point in their lives, because a lot of times they're still in college. And I'm not talking about generational. I know, like, we could talk generations and, this generation versus that, like who's more motivated, who's more driven. But I found it very interesting when working with interns to motivate and to drive. And that's sometimes been the hardest and the easiest. And I say that because sometimes they're the hungriest mother effers out there, because they're like, I'm about to hit the world and I know the real world can be cruel, but I want to hit it ground running and do everything I can to grow as fast as I can. And then I have other people that I've had that are pretty complacent. Like, man, I'm living the college life. I don't have that much responsibilities. This is an internship. I have to do it just to graduate. So I'll get motivated when like the real world sets in. But right now I'm going to enjoy my Thirsty Thursdays and my college life and kind of that kind of thing.
Yep.
How, as I feel like good leaders are able to motivate all sorts of walks of life, right? And I see, and I'm not bashing on the interview process, because you do want to get the right people for the right job. And like Brad's saying, is I'm seeing if they're a team player. I'm seeing if they're motivated and they're driven. But what happens when you have someone, not that you're forced to work with, but like, and Brad, I'm talking about interns. Like, I've worked with a lot of interns. I worked for a company that had a partnership with a university literally in their backyard. And we did a lot of internships with this university, and it was a requirement for them to graduate. So for some of them, what I was telling Steve is, they're like, I know my next step is hitting the real world, and the real world can be cruel. I'm going to be soaking up everything I can, getting everything I can to be the best foot forward for my next step in life. And then others are like, I just got to do this to get through college. I'm still going to enjoy my college life, going out, having fun, whatever, which they should, don't get me wrong. But my question is, I feel like some of the great leaders are able to motivate all walks of life. So my question is, say you take on someone like that, and there's no way around it. It's not like a hire where you could tell them yes or no, right? It's someone that is put in your department, and you're tasked with teaching them what you do, how you do it, give them a skill set, give them a purpose, give them a meaning, but they may not really want it, and they're just going to do what they can do to skate by. How do you approach that? And I want this to be challenging. Maybe it's not. Maybe you guys are like, oh, I do this, Bob, done. But I feel like this is tough,
I
because
love
I've
the
had to go
challenging
through
ones.
this. I've had to go through this. I'm not saying I've done it right every time, but I want to hear your guys' take.
Brad, why don't you lead off there, bud?
It's always, hey, by the way, it's always a
You-
good sign when someone's ready, so eager to pass it off to someone else. You know.
Well,
Okay, sorry.
so they're let me get this straight, right? So
Okay.
they
I'll tell you when you're
are
wrong.
they're an intern, right? You're supposed to teach them your job.
Yeah, so they're
Or
they're
They're trying to learn
they're-
after you, right?
they're supposed to be
with your
they're a
like
branch of your team. So I'll give you an example. I worked in product development. I managed a business unit, 3 product lines. I had industrial designers, I had engineers, product manager. And this person is supposed to, one, make my life easier. They're supposed to take on some stuff that I can offload onto them, I can delegate. But they're also supposed to learn business because in my world, when I was a BU lead, I worked with marketing, finance, sales, engineering, sourcing, logistics. I worked with it all because I had to make sure my products were there on time. I had to make sure my designs were right. I had to make sure I met certifications. I had to make sure sales was meeting their numbers. So my goal, I loved having interns because they were going to get exposed to everything. But they didn't always see it that way. They didn't always see it as like a benefit. So how do I take this kid who's, 21, maybe 22,
Yep.
sometimes I had like 20-year-olds, but how do I take this kid and say, hey man, you're getting a great experience? How do I motivate someone who's just like, I'm just going to do the bare minimum so I can get my credits and graduate? How do you take
Okay.
that person and motivate them in that environment?
So, probably let me go this route. So, probably ask like, hey, why are you here? What do you want to do in life? Is this your
Can I be
end
the
goal?
college kid?
Yes, sure.
All right.
All right,
I
Buck.
have to be.
All right, Buck. Why are you
Role
Why are
play.
you here? Why are you here at this company with me? Why do you want to be here?
Well, I have to take this internship to graduate.
Okay. So what do you want to do in life? Is this your end goal? Do you want to do something else?
I'm studying sport management. Not sure if I want to work for a team, if I want to work for a brand. Yeah, I figured I'd figure that out after I graduate.
Okay. So what do you think you need to learn to follow this path that you want to go down?
How to get through each day, how to just make sure people around me are happy and I'm not getting fired.
Okay. Well, listen, here's what I can offer you. You can learn from me. You can learn from my mistakes. You can learn everything I'm going to teach you. You can learn the do's and don'ts. You can learn a lot of life processes. I'm going to teach you a lot about life and about the job and teach a lot of skills along the way. So if you're just here for, a paycheck or, just here to get your hours, that's cool. We don't need to waste tons of time. I can teach you the bare minimum if that's all you want to learn. But if you want to learn the real shit, the good shit, how to succeed in life and how to get up and be successful in any company, then you need to follow me.
But how is that going to help me when I leave here? After I leave here, like, you're not going to worry about me. Like, you're going to keep doing your thing and I'm on my own.
Well, I'm going to teach you all the skills you need to succeed in life after you leave me.
So you're saying that regardless of the industry I'm in, these skills are transferable.
Maybe not all of the skills, but you're going to learn a lot of skills. You're going to learn a lot of life lessons because a lot of skills in jobs transfer to life. They're very similar if you can actually get down to the core of a lot of problems in life or work. Why do people argue at work? why do people, show up late, or why do people call in sick? There's a lot of life lessons in there too, rather than just work. You got to think of it as I'm learning life skills and how to move forward in life so I can take anything that I want to do in any direction. And that's what you're going to learn.
Good. I like it. I like it. I was actually going to be a real asshole, but I decided like you're actually making some good points. So I was about to ask you when was happy hour. Like, can we get the fuck out of here? But
well, I don't know where's role, but I mean, I don't know. I think like you just got to kind of level with them really. If you're not going to change their mind. Like, hey, here's all the reasons why you need to follow me. I think it's a terrible approach. I think it's more of like, you can do what you want to do, but to succeed or to move up in anything, I mean, you guys agree or disagree, like in anything, in any company, anywhere you want to work, there's a very specific set of like skills or things you need to have in order to succeed.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. I think that's just you have to have to be successful in things. There's similar qualities or traits or skills that you need to have. Yeah,
right. Like if you break it down to like the core.
There's so much like, and they say this. I used to know this stat, and it's just like a terrible advocate for the education system, but like there's something along some percentage that was absurd with the percentage that you learn in school and the percentage you learn from real life experiences. It's like insanely weighted towards like
real life.
Okay, now if I'm going to go be an aerospace engineer, that's probably more weighted on the education portion of it, right? Because there's a lot of skills and knowledge that you need from that.
Yeah.
Very specific, right? A lawyer, like there's certain things that yes is highly weighted to the education system, but in my walk of life, and it sounds like in the business world, there's so much of it. It's just people. It's just people, and how do you understand people? Not just people. Sorry, there's a lot more to it, but that's a big part of it. And understanding people's needs and how they react, and being able to pivot to different personalities and different desires and drives. And Brad, you hit it very well. I was a little lucky in my world because I was developing products that were showing up on MLB fields and collegiate fields and T-ball fields and all that kind of stuff. But to a degree, it's it's not an unfair question to you guys, but like a lot of the interns I got were pumped because they're dealing with a local brand that is kind of worldwide known to a degree. And you're going to see, I'm like, hey man, you work with me on this project before you graduate, you're going to see this on a field, like I was working on an MLB project. I'm like, when you walk that line, like when you get your diploma, you're going to see something we worked on an MLB field. And that kind of jacked them up. So it was a little easier for me. But the other part of what I would do, I did a lot of things similar to Brad. What you were saying was, hey, look, you can learn as much as you want from me or as little as you want. Whatever you need to do to graduate, I'm here to help you get there. But you could learn if you want to be a sponge and you want to get a job here even after college, like this is the best route to go. But at the same time, if you just want to make sure you do the steps you need to take to, like Brad said, get your hours, get your pay, whatever, and then you move on, that's your choice. That's your motivation. That's your thing. I would love to give you everything I can to give you the best opportunity when you graduate to succeed from that point on and learn from where I failed and learn from where I've succeeded. But I had a couple shitheads like that where it was just like really tough to get through, but halfway through or towards the end, they kind of saw the light at the end of the tunnel. But I think Brad, to your point, it's just like level with them. Like just tell me what you want to get out of this. Let's set expectations and let's see if we can meet or exceed those. Yeah. Right.
Because I'm not going to change their mind of whether they want to do the job or not.
100%.
There's 0% chance that I'm going to do that. I can't be like, hey, here's all the great things. You ready? change your mind yet?
Yeah.
Never in a million years it's going to work.
And
So
I think
they have to
some
decide
people
for
get
themselves.
lost. Yeah, and I think some people get lost that like they might have like, all right, let's just say Brad, you or Steve has all this motivation, all this drive, all this willingness to grow and learn. And Brad, you report to him and you have half of that. Some leaders, in my mind, struggle to not see the same drive and motivation and potential in the people around them, and it drives them nuts and they don't understand it. And I think if you're wanting someone to have the exact same qualities and interests and motivation as you, like one, you're going to be very like, you're not going to be very, what am I looking for? Diverse in your business, but then maybe that's not the right person that you should be teaming up with. And if you can understand the people that what they want to do and what they want to get out of what they're doing, like you become a better leader because you understand the people around you and you're able to take what your drive is out of it and build upon what you have around you. If you want everybody to be like you, I'm not sure that's a great leader. Could be wrong. You guys could disagree. I don't think you want everybody to be like you because then nobody's thinking differently and you're never truly growing and improving.
Well, can't
Oh,
have
boy.
everyone like you, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm one of a kind. Thank you for saying
Wow.
that. But
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys heard. What you guys ever heard Ray Lewis? What he says: the 3 people you need around you.
you're gonna bring him into this?
Yeah, he had a good
I'm just
quote,
kidding.
and
I'm
I
just kidding.
liked it.
I know killers can still have good ideas.
Yeah, alleged.
Allegedly, you're right.
You know, he said you need the grateful, the intense, maybe.
I'll look it up while you're saying it.
The grateful, the intense, and I'm butchering this right now. I'm upset. Basically, like the sponge, you know, like you need people who are grateful around you, like people who are, you know, want to soak up all the knowledge. And you need people with drive, I think is what he's, you know, basically he said different things, but you need those people around you because if you don't have those, what I picked up out of it is, you know, if you put people just like you, then what's the point of it? Because then you're just putting ideas off on them and they're going to agree with you 24/7. They're not going to help you grow drive, right? I think it's huge to have people who are grateful around you. And, you know, you can have grateful qualities and stuff like that, but if you have like somebody who's just grateful and who's happy and who's positive and, you know, happy to be here, that is awesome. But it keeps you on your toes. Like it keeps you there. It keeps you from dipping into the dark side and, you know, falling off and all that. But and then people will drive, you know, those guys are you know, contagious. I think they rub off on people.
Yeah.
You know, people are always like, hey, let's go get it. Let's get it. Let's go. You know, let's do something great. Like, I don't know. I liked it. I don't know. It just like hit home for me, I guess, because I was like, man, you need those people in your life. Because I've had different people in my life, and I've had, you know, some people in my life, and then you realize that they fall off the wagon. They go to the wayside. If you're trying to do something great or move forward, you know, I really think if you surround yourself with great people and you can accomplish fucking anything, really. With yourself motivated enough and you have the right people around you, you can do great things. I mean, you know, funny enough, one of my favorite people, what's that Italian dude's name? You guys know what I'm talking about?
Italian dude.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, you can go either way there. There's some pretty bad Italian
Mussolini.
dudes.
Joey Diaz.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's one
Joey
of my,
Coco Diaz.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite, dude.
Did he pass away, or is he still with us?
I think he's still alive, dude. That
He came to my local radio show.
What?
He was on the podcast that I listened to is a local radio show. Well, they're local, but they're a regionalized. They're out of St. Louis, but they're pretty decent size. But yeah, they've gotten a lot of like comedians and stuff that come in, and he was one that came in.
Man, St. Louis is so much cooler than Idaho. Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
so much better. But yeah, Joey Diaz is he's one of my favorite, dude. He's always like,
Joey Coco Diaz.
Happy Monday, you cocksuckers. You know, he gets it, but and he's like, people got it all wrong. They think you need an army. He's like, no, you need about 3 motherfuckers to take over the world. True story.
You need the inspired, the excited, and the grateful.
Boom. See?
You were close.
Close.
I came up with that all by myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't lead for to read nothing.
No, but apparently I Googled Raw Lewis, which not sure I want to look at the images of that.
Yeah, nah, don't do that.
Yeah, he said the inspired, the excited, and the grateful. He was on like an interview with Steve Harvey and this kid and his mom and this. Anyway, I just watched it real quick, but
yeah,
inspired, excited, and the grateful.
That's why Brad knows, because it was on a Steve Harvey interview.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Can we just cover that real quick?
He loves himself some Family Feud.
Steve Harvey is one of the greatest motherfuckers.
Dude, that guy is, if you ever listen to him talk, like he does some, even in Family Feud, like I think it's like
in
off
his
air.
Pre-show, yeah.
He does like a pre-show and like.
He talks to the crowd.
Yeah, he does some good shit.
I know, you guys are all hating and shit on it.
Hey,
wait, when did I hate?
When I brought him up the first time.
Wait, when did you bring him up the first time? Was I on that podcast?
Fuck yeah, you were.
I don't think I'd do. I would never hate on Steve Harvey.
I don't know like the thing, but and I was like, oh, people who inspire you, and I was like, I named like one other one. I was like, oh, Eric Thomas, and I was like, and Steve Harvey, and he goes like, Steve Harvey.
Oh, no way I said that. He came from nothing. He came from nothing, I believe.
Nothing, dude.
Yeah.
And he just, his story's powerful. And then he, yeah, you think he's just a Family Feud dude, but yet off air and in between commercial breaks, he's just giving a sermon to the crowd, like telling them life lessons.
But he does it in a way that's not preachy.
Yeah, because he's a comedian.
That's what I like. Well, yeah, but that's what I like about it. Like, I'm going to be honest. Like, everybody takes a message a different way, and certain people don't relate to other people, and that's fine. That's what the world's about, is being different. But when I feel people that I feel like there's a vibe that I get from some people that are too preachy, that I feel like I don't believe they even follow what they say, and that's what I struggle with. Like, being a good leader is like not only delivering a message, but instilling it into the people listening that you also follow this. You're also going to challenge yourself with this. And I go back to Steve, what you said during COVID, like if I saw my boss getting out of his comfort zone, going for business that he normally wouldn't, just to keep the company afloat and prospering and working his ass off, like that's what drives me. I have my own internal drive. Don't get me wrong, but that's like my pre-workout. That's what gets me jacked up and gets me ready to go even more harder than I would have that day. And when I have people that I see feel so preachy that they know these are words that people want to hear, but do they really follow it themselves? And maybe they do. But again, I feel like I can read people fairly well. I'm sure I get it wrong from time to time, but like when I don't believe that you actually follow through with that on your own free will, it's tasteless to me. I don't like it. It's just hard for me I can't listen to like Steve Harvey. Like, it doesn't seem preachy. He's like, I fucking had it hard and here I am. And this is what got me here. Like, okay, man, I feel you. Like, I get you.
Yeah. That's why it's one of my favorites.
Yeah. I don't know who made fun of you, Brad, but I'm sorry I wasn't there to defend you or I overlooked that.
You have to lead yourself first before you can lead others. So that's if you truly lead the life that that you're talking about, it's you can see it, that people can see it, and if you lead yourself, you're you, the way that I've always looked at it is you can't lead anybody else unless you can lead yourself first. So,
Yes.
and that's something that I think I got from some of the guys that I first started working with, like Randy, for instance. The what he did, or the way he worked and still does, but uh and Tyrell as well was a big one, going, through everything. But they would lead by putting themselves in the most difficult situation before asking anybody else to go take care of that. The shittiest spot in the wire pole, the most difficult portion of the job to figure out, the uh the part of that project that's going to make them stay over the weekend or have to come in on the holiday. They've always done that first. So, it grew to, that's how I look at things too. So, they, by leading themselves that way and doing things that way, it led me to do the same things. You know, I think if the leader's not willing to do what he says he's going to do, or the leader's not willing to do what he's asking everybody else to do, then it doesn't mean shit.
Yes. That's a big
What
one. Big one.
wouldn't you say, based on that, and I agree with that 100%, would you say that there is a portion of getting to the position of leadership that at some point, yes, doing those things and doing what you did during COVID, like that's a huge burst of morale and showing that you're gonna lead by example. And but is it fair to say that those not in a leadership position, and I feel like everybody's technically should be considering themselves a leader, no matter
I agree.
what level you are within a company. But even if so, say you have nobody reporting to you, let's just say that, right? I think everybody should demonstrate or strive to be a leader, because just because someone doesn't report to you, I think that maybe gets construed sometimes like, oh, you're a leader because people report to you. No, no, like you're leading by example by doing what you're doing at whatever level you're doing it. But my point is, when you get to a certain level, your job is to truly delegate, oversee, manage. You're like playing the game of chess. And I think it's okay that I think sometimes people get so butthurt that, like, well, he's up there in his cushy office, is doing nothing, blah, 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 just like kind of collecting a paycheck, like, out on his yacht and blah, blah, blah. But
Mhm.
I think at some level, like, I know everybody serves a purpose. And I like to think that those people at that level, I accept that they're there looking at the big picture, playing the game of chess, making sure the company's successful, the right pieces are in place, and they may not be on the front lines, but they're the general kind of making sure everything's moving down the field. We're getting closer to the end zone. And yeah, maybe from time to time they demonstrate other things where they're getting out in the field and they're, undercover boss and doing that kind of thing, and they're kind of like showing that they care at that level. But what do you guys think about that? Like, I don't know. Like, I struggle with people like constantly raining down on the head honcho because they're just in their cushy little life. But like, I think they serve a purpose, right? Or they should be serving a purpose at a higher level.
Well,
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of, I mean, what
to,
you said about, leaders because people report to them. That's a very different thing. There's leaders and then there's bosses. That's 100% different. But I think you're right to a certain degree that the role that leader plays, when he's in that cushy office and has the ability to go out in his yacht, he's he at that point, yes, he's leading everything, but really, he's kind of leading only select few, and then the leadership trickles down. And so, you know, that's something that I think everybody should. Yeah, the guy that has the big chair, he might not be doing the physical work anymore, or even didn't ever do it. That's there's some people that have gotten to that position different ways. It's not always the guy that worked in the field that moves to the office. Sometimes there's people that were put in the office role early and never left. So it's different that way. But everybody should realize that that's just another role.
Mm-hmm.
The leader is the one that's like you can have that role and not be a leader.
True. Very true.
That big picture thinking, that chess moves, that you can be that role and not be a leader. So the leader is the one that's getting or inspiring uh, the people to do what what they're being asked to do, or to show them the bigger picture, the greater reason, or to lead by example, or that's a very big difference. And I think people should realize that's not always that just because that guy's in that spot doesn't mean he's the real leader. There can be that's just a role that people play, or that's in a business.
Yeah, 100%.
The leader is the one that's because yeah, you could run the whole business from a yacht, but it doesn't. That point, you're not making a difference to anybody.
Yeah,
The
or if they
leader's
don't
the
respect you, then
well, the leader's the one making the difference in the people's lives.
yeah,
The leader's
true.
that's one thing uh, that I also took from Eisenhower is you can't go position like I'm in and go into a wire pole or pouring light poles or something like that, and you can't you can't make it you can't make what they do every day seem like you can just step in and do it. Like, yeah, you should know how to do it, but like that kind of, to me, you're putting on a facade that you're not really doing. Eisenhower would he when he would visit the troops, he would never put on a helmet when he went to the front lines, because he's like, I'm only here for a minute. I don't need all this. You guys are here the whole time. I'm not going to take equipment away from somebody else to. So he never wanted to make it seem like he did what they did every day. And if I go into the field and act like I do what they do every day, it takes away from what they really do. It makes it downplays what they do. So you have to go in knowing that, yeah, you can go be a part of it, but you have to
You're a support at that point. You're showing your
support.
support.
Yeah. You step aside and let the guy that's actually leading that crew or running that wire pole or doing that, you let him tell you what to do. You know, you don't act like you're out there with them every day doing it, because one, it they don't respect you at that point, and two, it's fake. And that was one thing. When I go out onto a job, I don't pretend. Uh, yeah, I can do that too. Like, yeah, I could, but I don't do it every day. So I give them props. You can't just go in and act like it's so easy and you can do it. And the that role, that leadership role, when you get to that level where you're not in the field at all, you're not interacting with the field guys every day, you have to realize that you're you are in a different role. You can't just step in and become one of the boys, right away. Yeah, you can do things with them, you can interact, you can uh have a level of trust and a bond with them. But if you pretend that you're doing it with them, you know you can
You're
you
not
can
the guy on
support
the
'em,
interview
obviously.
that knows how
Yeah,
to do everything.
yeah, exactly. You've got to go in and play a supporting role no matter what you're walking into. If you just go in and take over, there's times, yeah, where you have to take charge in a way. Like, you go onto a job and you see uh five guys doing a two-man job. Yeah, you can shift manpower around. You can give them direction on, things that they could do differently to get more done or something like that, because they're not seeing it, because they're so deep into the situation that they can't step back and see that they need to make a change. But to just go in and be like, I do this too, it doesn't work. That you don't get any followership that way.
What
So,
would you one way that I the way that I look at that, take any company of any industry, and the way that I look at it is like take a car or any machine that's doing anything, but take a car. There's however many parts, right? A steering wheel can't do the same thing that an engine does.
yeah,
Or, like there's and I don't know enough about cars to keep ratting off parts, but essentially is there's so many parts that goes into a machine that gets it to do what it needs to do. To say that one part can replace any other part in that car and it still work the same way, it's not going to be
yeah,
the same thing. So that's the
yeah,
way I look at it when you take a company of any industry is there's all these pieces of the puzzle, right? We all work together to get to the end goal, but you take this person out of this role and put them in this, might not function the right way or in the same efficiency. Like that's kind of how like for those listening, like you scale it down to just like any kind of machine that has multiple parts, whether it's one part or two parts or 100 parts or 1,000 parts, like doesn't make you can't interchange things and make it work the same way.
yeah. Yeah, it
So
takes it takes every part doing its job to make it run.
and I think a lot of people get caught up on hierarchy, right?
Yep.
About what was it, 3 4 years or 3 years, 3 or 4 months ago, I moved to a new IT company, and I went from our company, we've got like I don't know 700 800 employees. I went from like a 50 employee operation to this bigger company, and met with a lot of people in leadership positions in my onboarding, the CEO included. And in that process, one thing I heard a lot of the time was, look, you said this earlier, Steve. The CEO said, look, I trust that the people that I put in these leadership positions put people in the next level of leadership, so on and so forth, to instill our values and to foster like a good home work life balance and, the management style that we're trying to drive across the board. And, like we trust these pieces of the puzzle to work, but then also there's one guy in particular who specifically said, "I don't care what title I have," and he was like next in like right below the CEO, so he was high up. He goes, "I don't look at it that way. To think that the person below me doesn't know as much as me is ridiculous because they came from a
Yeah.
different walk of life, different upbringing, different experiences, different former places they worked at." He goes, to me, I would love to just put titles to the side and we all are just like in departments and we're all just trying to figure out. And granted, you have to have some level of like to know who reports to who and who's going to make the decisions. So he understands that. But he goes, it does just because I'm a, you know, executive senior VP or whatever it was, like, doesn't mean that I can't learn from someone who started yesterday right out of college. I think that's important. Like, to think that you ever have learned it all, we've touched on this in a lot of different ways, that you don't want to hire someone who thinks they know it all, because they don't.
Yeah.
And to think you could retire and think you know it all, but you don't know it all, because the world's ever
Yeah.
changing. Technology's ever changing, industries are changing, mindsets are changing. And I think, Brad, you said this earlier, to get complacent, it's really toxic. Like, it could be really bad for you, because
Yep.
the world isn't complacent. So you're just going to end up going backwards by staying at where you're at, if that makes sense. So,
Yeah,
Yes.
I really think, like, the people I love to surround myself with is people who want to do more, who want to keep going and keep pushing. Like, if you want to push and people want to stay complacent, they're going to just drag you down and hold you back. But if you can surround yourself, I mean, employees or, other, coworkers or bosses or whatever, other leaders around you, if they all want to move in the same direction and move forward, then you're going to move a lot further than somebody being like, well, I hit my 40 hours. I'm done.
Yeah.
You're going to actually push forward. If someone who wants to push, they'll probably push you. And that's, what else can you ask for than people
Yeah.
below you pushing you, to reach higher, and then you push people above you, and, so on. Like, this is a dream right there. Because if you're just stagnant in life, for one, you're going to be unhappy no matter what.
Mhm.
You're going to be unhappy. Two, when you're stagnant, like us as human beings, we have to grow. We have to move towards a goal, or else you get depressed. You think, hey, well, what's wrong with me? Why am I this? What's that? And then you second guess everything in life. And then, you second guess whatever else, and then other problems. And it's just a snowball effect. But if you don't, and you're like, hey, I want to move forward, I want to grow, you always have that itch, that drive to learn, to adapt, to learn new skills, to push forward, and you always want to grow, then, I mean, you're going to succeed in life no matter what you do. Whether that's this job, that job, down the road, start your own career, do whatever you want to do. I mean, that's just a life skill that I think everyone needs to have, because people who don't have it, they could have it. They just choose not to, or life's beat them down so much that they don't know where they're at. They're a little lost point or something. But never lose that curiosity, that drive to keep learning, to keep pushing for whatever it is. I mean, it could just change careers or change anything, but just keep fucking pushing no matter what, because when you do that, you're going to be happy in life. And I promise that. Sorry, that was a little rant.
No, that's good. I would say too, to feed off of that, people may ask, oh, well, you make it sound so easy. You can, just keep driving, keep pushing, get curious. Like, if you ever hit a wall, and I've done this, don't get me wrong, I've done this in tons of different walks of life, like, meaning, I played sports, in my business career and family, whatever. Like, if you hit a wall, one thing that's helped to me is, like, again, I think this is like my third cliche tonight, but I go back to my roots. Like, what happened? One, what happened to make me hit that wall? Try to investigate that. Did I get bored with what I'm doing? Like, did I lose motivation or drive because I wasn't getting pushed and I need a little bit of assistance in pushing myself, right? Or two, just like, go back to when you first felt that moment of drive, whether you right out of college, you got your first job. Like, I came out of college saying two things. That was one. I meant to put two up. Two, first thing, I either wanted to be doing what I wanted to be doing with whatever company. I did not care. And I know I've said this on the other podcasts. Or two, get into the company I wanted to be in at whatever level, and I will get to where I need to go. And I picked two. I was a college baseball player. I got into a well-known sporting goods brand in customer service. I was answering phones, taking shit calls, working with sales reps, helping them out. And I told myself, this is great because I was exposed to all different departments because I had to work with different departments. I kind of allowed myself to like learn what I really liked. And I'm like, man, I really love product development. I love coming up with an idea and taking 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, however long it took to get it on field, and then feeling that relief when it hit the field and seeing, you know, Timmy's first little like football or baseball helmet. Or I worked with football helmets was the first product I worked with, but you know,
Nice.
or seeing, a pro player put on my helmet for the first time or whatever the case was. Like I wanted to do that. So what did I do? I did everything I could. And before you knew it, like in, what was it, 5 or 6 years time, I got myself to a point where I was managing the 3 product lines in a business unit that it was my baby, and it was amazing. And I had a moment in my career where I was like, I don't know, maybe I'll just take a job that pays well and I can just kind of coast. And I was like, well, that's not really me, but why have I lost that drive? And I went back to college. And that's not everybody's point. I'm not saying everybody go back to college. I'm saying go back to that point in your life that you were hungry. And I was hungry coming out of college.
Yep.
And I took a job. Was not excited about doing customer service, although it did benefit me greatly, but it was with the company I wanted. And I did everything I could to get to where I wanted to be in that company. And that is what brought me to where I'm at today, where I'm in a different industry, completely different industry, but I know where I want to go. I don't know how quickly I can get there, but my challenge is getting there as fast as possible. And it kind of invigorated me again, Yeah, I
Yeah.
could do it for my family. I could do it for my future, my retirement, all that. And that still all fuels me. Don't get me wrong. Like I want my kids to have as best of a life as they can. I want my wife to be, like taken care of, although she's super fucking motivated in her own world. But I also, can I retire at 55 versus 60 or 60 versus 65? Like, what is it? Like, what can I do to like, you know, allow myself to enjoy life to its fullest? So anyway, that was an even longer rant than yours,
I
Brad, but
mean,
I just
that
want
was
people to
good.
go back to that point. I want people to go back to that point where like they were the hungriest they ever were and what got them to that point, and use
Right.
that to get yourself back on track.
So,
So,
so when you said that, curious, do you have like a certain thing that drove you to made you hungry, or were you just remembering like how hungry you were? Or were you remembering what actually made you hungry? If that makes sense.
yeah, actually in that process, so I went from customer service to assistant product manager to blah blah blah, and I worked my way up, right? And in each stage of that, I had a different level of hunger or a different like type of hunger. Um, right now, I could say like back then I didn't have, I was dating my now wife, but and I didn't have any kids. But now I'm like doing a lot for my kids and my family, but I'm also doing it for my wife and I, and she's doing it for us as well. Where like I literally just had this conversation last weekend with my mom. I was like, if I can retire earlier with the same quality of life, how can I do that? Well,
It's good.
I have a good job right now. I get good pay. I do well. But if I could get to this step or this step or this step, I can influence more people below me and impact their lives, but also impact my life by helping fuel that retirement. Because I've seen lives end short, right? And
Yep.
not enjoy your retirement.
Yep.
So, you know, I want to be able to live some of the best life or best years I possibly can, not having to work. So like that was kind of like not what fueled me back then. My fuel back then was like I want to be able to design product that people wore and felt comfortable in and felt safe in and blah blah blah. Now it's shifted because I'm not developing product, but I want to be successful, and successful to me is impacting those around me and making them successful, making them move up in their careers, but then also fuel my future. So it's shifted. I think that's kind of normal based on your stage in your life and
Yeah.
your whatever. But and I think it's good to be able to pivot, like find new ways that motivate you. Because I don't know if you can technically rely on the same thing solely one thing. Like I think you have to have different areas or different angles of motivation to get you to where you need to go.
So you're saying like your new goals motivate you.
Yeah, yeah. And back then I still wanted to, have be successful and defining that is very loose, but I wanted to retire comfortably and have a family and all that. I didn't have that then. Now I have a family. Now I'm pushing towards it. Yeah. So it's like they evolved. My goals evolved is how I would put it.
Okay, so let me ask you this, Steve. You got something you can chime into.
There you go.
So with you got your new goals and you want to strive towards something, right? What about on the days you don't want to? What pushes you?
So I
Or-
literally see this come across my TikTok. And I know I'm an old dude, but I do have TikTok and I see this and I get a lot of based on obviously what we do here. I get a lot of motivational and like stuff like that coming across my TikTok. And a lot of it stems from sports, but like if I don't do it today, how far behind am I going to be tomorrow? And you could look at say you're training to be a bodybuilder. If I miss a workout, and sometimes you can't quantify it, and that's the challenge, but like, man, if I miss today, like am I going to get first place or second place or third place in my competition? So for me in the business world is, man, and don't get me wrong, I believe in self medicating, like take a day for you. Like if you're not right in the head, like you need to figure that out. So I think it's a balance between understanding when you need to take a break and not overwork yourself to where then you become a detriment to yourself. Like that's important because there's a point where you push yourself too hard that you're no longer moving forward, you're actually going backward. And it's a balance. You have to learn a lot about yourself, both mentally, physically, everything. But to actually answer your question, Brad, I think it's important to just know that that day off, what you're not doing, does that or I'm sorry. So if I'm taking a quote unquote day off from moving myself forward in the business world, does that outweigh what I'm going to do on that day where I'm not pushing myself in the business world? So to me, it's like the weighted scale, right? So if I don't put this deal together today and I wait and push that off to tomorrow, what am I going to do with that time that would have taken to do that? And if that in my mind makes me better for that day, then I'm okay with it. But
okay.
if you're sacrificing productivity for taking a step back in another area, then I don't know if it really makes sense. Does that make sense? I don't know if I really explained that real well, but
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
For
I
me,
was.
it's
Well, go ahead, Steve.
well, I was just gonna say. So for me, it's the days that I don't want to, the non motivated days. I guess the days that you don't feel like doing shit. I always have to just tell myself if I don't do it now or I don't get it done today, what am I not going to be able to do tomorrow? What am I not going to be able to do on Friday or
Yeah, because it's
Saturday?
gonna take up that much more
Yeah.
time.
So for me, it's always if I don't do it now, or there's always the other. If I don't do it, who will? But if I don't do it now, what is that gonna make me miss out on tomorrow?
Right.
So it's making sure that you
You get it done. Right.
are, yeah,
And
you get
don't.
it done. You the first thing first, so you can do what you want to do later.
Right. Well, real quick, Steve, what would you say to the people who have lost sight of their goal and maybe lost motivation, and they were, they were gung ho all on it. Hey, this is what I want to do, and then, got beat up along the way a little bit, and lost sight of the goal and lost motivation. They're kind of in a slump, so to speak. What would you say to those guys?
Would ask them if they were to die right now, would they be okay with it? With what
Oh,
they did?
that cuts deep. Wow,
Yeah,
that's
out
a
of the
great.
gate, I wasn't ready for that one.
That
I mean,
I legit got goosebumps. I'm not even kidding. That's
if
actually cuts
you
real
can
deep.
if you can end each day being okay with not waking up tomorrow, then you've done it right.
Wow,
God
that is,
damn.
and you look at him take a drink right after fucking drop
Oh,
the mic.
Jesus Christ.
Honestly, I mean, how else can you even sum it up better than that? I'm being honest. Like, I know a lot of people say like, oh, if you died today, are you happy with what you did? But like, it's a great way to just simplify it. But also, it's deep. Like I legit got goosebumps about that. Like, wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one more time for the crowd. Jesus Christ, Steve. Fuck. Would you
Um,
be okay if you died? Damn.
yeah.
I've I've heard like, hey, imagine this in 5 years where you're gonna be 10 years, but I heard this little quote. It's like, imagine in 10 years if you don't do anything, you stay the same.
Yeah.
Are you gonna be happy where you're at? And I mean, I can't top that.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
fuck, man, that's about it. I mean, there might be little things here and there, but yeah, that's about it. You know.
that was good, Steve.
Eh.
Steve just
Well,
taught us a lesson of life right
I
there.
know. All right, Steve. What about this? What if people who were like, "Hey, I just want to do me, and I just want to try to be cool and have a live my life, and my family likes me, and I'm just want to be a good grandpa and whatnot." Do you have any
I mean,
advice for them to push towards any goal that they've thought of? Because I'm a true believer. Everyone has a goal. Everyone has a dream.
yeah. I
I think
mean,
people are afraid to fail.
yeah. I mean,
But
to an extent that you can't. If you're in a leadership position, like that, and you've got somebody that's just okay with being bare minimum, being not really pushing for succeeding, reaching that top level.
right.
I think the only thing you can do is challenge them and hold them accountable. But if they don't want it, it's never going to matter. There's nothing that you can no matter what you say to them, what you do yourself, that's going to change anything in their mindset. So you just have to challenge them and hold them accountable for what you think they should be capable of doing or what you expect from them, and
Hope to
let
spark
them
something.
be okay with you passing them by and watching and remind them, when they bitch about how everybody else passed them, that they were okay with it. You were all right with being passed back then.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a regret that they're going to have, and
Yeah.
hopefully one day they realize that it's not too late to start over, to start doing it, because you can't force anybody to learn that. You
Nope.
can't
Just like an
you
intern.
can't yeah, it's just like the intern. If I had an intern that didn't give a shit, about motivate or self motivator or wanting to do it. He just wanted to be there to be there. Cool. I'm gonna challenge you every day, hold you accountable, beat you up until you either don't give a shit, you quit, or you start to give a shit. I'm not gonna give him any kind of speech or you can learn from me, you can do this. Because ultimately you're just kind of wasting your
Life.
effort and energy on somebody that doesn't care. If they're with you that much, spend every day with you for a summer, and they don't care at the end, then maybe neither do you. You know,
Boom. Boom.
you gotta
That's.
it's gonna rub off on them if you care enough.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, if they're that type that just is never gonna, there's nothing you can do about it. There's
Mm-hmm.
nothing.
Nope.
There's people that are always gonna just be on the I'm okay with with the life that I'm not as successful. I have this goal of being a dad, and they're a dad, and that's all they are. Well, that's great, but what are they passing on to their kids? Things like that. There's no goals that their kids are going to be goalless as well, or they're going to take the complete opposite route.
Yeah.
Um,
Go get it.
but
Yeah.
yeah, you can't change somebody like that. You got to just do what you do and hope that by caring about them and showing them the what you do to succeed in your ambition and drive, that it rubs off on them. But you can't preach on it every day, because pretty soon it's going to become nagging. You
Yep.
know, just like your wife telling you to fucking fold your clothes 20 days in a row.
Oh
You get
yeah,
that.
you fucking power bomber the next time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But
Right.
at some point, motivation become to the wrong person. That motivational push can become just nagging. That
Yep.
they're it's, ah, I don't need to hear it anymore. You know,
Yeah. Well.
and then again, if they're okay with that, so be it.
Yeah.
To each
But
their own.
Yeah.
they gotta be okay with everybody else
Passing them by.
passing them by, and you know if they're not hungry for it, you can't change anything that way.
Well, to everybody who's out there who's kind of giving up, okay, but everyone who's on the fence out there listening, just know wise words. What Steve said: if you had to die tomorrow, would you be okay with it? And
Yeah.
you only, no matter what your beliefs are, you will die one day.
Yeah.
And that is just facts. Whether you think you come back again or whether you think you're one and done or whatever you believe, you will die one day. So might as well get out there and give it everything you fucking got. And follow your fucking dreams, because no matter how strongly you believe something, you do not know what happens after this life. Nobody knows. Nobody will ever know. It is a mystery. So the only words that I got for everyone out there on the fence is, if you are thinking about trying something, giving something an effort, or you have an imagination that's going wild, or you're sick of being where you're at, get your ass up, go fucking do something and make shit happen, because that drive, that energy will snowball, and you will, if you have set your mind to it, you will accomplish anything that you want to accomplish. And that is just straight up facts. So go out and fucking get it, because there's no time like the present. It is a gift, because the more time you wait, the more time you lose, and the longer it takes. So any advice that I have is just go and get it, no matter what.
Yep. Yeah, take every opportunity that comes.
You were gonna say today's a present, yesterday's history, and tomorrow's a mystery. I could have swore you were going that
I
route.
mean,
But to,
shorten it up,
but to be real with that,
today is the present. That's why it's a gift,
mm-hmm,
because you could not wake
Yep.
up tomorrow.
This is true. This is
Right.
true.
Right.
Love it. Good stuff.
The only thing that you know is you'll be missed when you're gone. That's about the only thing we know when we die.
True that.
So,
For a little while, then you'll just be forgotten about.
Yeah.
unless you go and make your mark in history.
Even the people that made their mark, pretty soon, 90% of the world forgot about them.
Yeah.
99.9%.
Yeah.
You can only affect now.
Live in
That's
the
right.
now.
You gotta live in the now. Well, that's why we're here to touch. Well, not like physically, but
Don't get weird.
Yeah.
We're here to shape minds, give a
shape
new
mind.
perspective.
Thank you.
Yeah, shape minds, give a new perspective. We're not touching anybody. This is not one of
No,
those podcasts, but we're here to give some insight.
Yep.
We could be wrong. We could be right.
To motivate.
It's somewhere in between. Take what you want, leave what you don't, and just keep moving forward. That's all you can do.
God damn. All right. Well, that's about it. Great podcast, fellas.
Yeah.
Cheers, boys.
Cheers to that. Thanks for listening, y'all.